Here's a question that sounds simple but will genuinely shift the way you understand your own body. What if a significant part of the pain you feel, especially the kind that sticks around, is less about what's happening in your tissues and more about what's happening in your brain? I know that sounds like I'm about to tell you it's all in your head. I'm not. That's actually a misreading of some really profound neuroscience. What I'm saying is that the brain is not a passive receiver of pain signals. It's an active generator of the pain experience. And that means, with the right knowledge, you have more influence over that experience than you probably realize. Today, we're going to dig into the science of how pain actually works, what's happening when injuries heal, and what tools science has uncovered for recovering faster and hurting less. This connects directly to neuroplasticity, and in some ways, it's the most personally relevant application of it that we can talk about. Let's start with something called the somatosensory system, because without understanding this, the rest won't fully land. Your body is covered in sensors, not metaphorically, literally, actual nerve cells embedded in your skin, your joints, your muscles, your organs. Different sensors respond to different things: pressure, heat, vibration, sharp contact. They convert whatever they detect into electrical signals, send those signals up the spinal cord and into the brain, and then the brain does the incredibly complex job of interpreting all of it. Every sensation, warmth, cold, the feeling of fabric against your skin, a headache, arrives in the brain as the same basic language, electrical activity. The brain then reads that activity and constructs the experience you actually feel. Pain specifically is handled by what scientists call the nociceptive system, from the Latin word for harm. But here's where things get fascinating and a little humbling. Pain and tissue damage are not the same thing. They can happen independently of each other. You can have serious internal tissue damage from radiation exposure and feel absolutely nothing. And on the flip side, you can feel excruciating pain with zero tissue damage whatsoever. There's a famous case published in the British Medical Journal that I find endlessly compelling every time I bring it up. A construction worker stepped on a nail that punched straight up through his boot. He was in extreme agony, couldn't tolerate movement in any direction. When paramedics cut the boot off at the hospital, they discovered the nail had gone cleanly between two toes without touching skin. Zero injury. But because he looked down and saw what appeared to be a nail through his foot, his brain constructed the full, intense experience of that trauma. His pain was 100% real, and 100% generated by top-down processing from his visual perception. That case isn't a weird anomaly. Thousands of similar case reports exist, and what they collectively tell us is something that changes how we should think about recovery. The mind has a genuine, measurable physiological role in the pain experience, and that role can work in your favor. Now, your brain also maintains an internal map of your entire body surface. It's called the homunculus, essentially a physical representation of your body encoded in your cortex. Here's the strange part. The map isn't proportional to body size, it's proportional to sensitivity. Your fingertips have an enormous brain region devoted to them. Your back, despite covering a massive physical area, has a comparatively tiny one. The more nerve endings a region has, the more cortex it gets. Which also means more sensitive regions tend to experience more pain when injured, and tend to heal faster, because they come with richer blood supply and more immune-supporting cellular infrastructure. This is why researchers at places like Harvard and Stanford studying pain make a clear distinction between injury and pain perception. They're related, but they're governed by separable systems. This distinction becomes especially vivid in the phenomenon of phantom limb. People who have had a limb removed often continue to feel that limb, and frequently they feel it as frozen in a painful position. The limb is gone, but the brain's map of that limb is still there. Without sensory feedback coming back from the missing tissue, that cortical region starts generating its own activity, and that activity registers as pain. Neuroscientist V.S. Ramachandran at UC San Diego developed an almost absurdly simple solution to this: a mirror box. By placing the remaining intact limb in a mirrored box, the brain received visual feedback that the missing limb was present and moving normally. In real time, patients reported relief. Minutes. The brain's map updated based on what the eyes were seeing. That is top-down modulation, the brain reshaping its own perception through incoming information. And it works. It works fast. It is neuroplasticity in action, in one of the most viscerally understandable demonstrations in all of neuroscience. Here's the practical extension of this for injury recovery that most people have never heard. Research carried out across multiple labs in the 1990s and 2000s showed that when one side of the body is injured, one of the most counterproductive things you can do is let the uninjured side completely take over. Say you sprain your left ankle. The natural instinct is to lean entirely on your right leg and let your left side do nothing. But what the research showed is that over-relying on the healthy side creates rapid, runaway plasticity in the brain circuits favoring the uninjured side. While the injured side's neural circuits lose ground fast, the result is that recovery slows dramatically. Muscle atrophy and casted limbs, by the way, is not primarily about the muscles themselves. It's the nerves going quiet that cause the muscles to shrink. The counterintuitive protocol that showed significantly faster recovery was this. Gently encourage movement in the injured limb as much as is safely possible, and actually restrict the uninjured limb for 1 to 2 hours daily. Pedal a stationary bike with only the injured leg. Write with the injured hand. Force the brain to maintain the circuitry for the side that needs it. This drives neural competition back toward the weaker side and preserves, or even restores, the pathways that would otherwise go dormant. You're not just resting, you're actively directing plasticity. Now let's talk about something that rarely gets a nuanced conversation in popular wellness content, and that's inflammation. Inflammation has been badly maligned. People treat it like it's the enemy, something to suppress at every opportunity. That framing misses the entire point. Inflammation is the body's first response team. When tissue is damaged, inflammation is what sends immune cells to the site, clears out debris, begins the repair process. Without acute inflammation, injuries don't heal. There are children born with mutations that block pain signaling entirely, who consequently never generate proper inflammatory responses. Their joints deteriorate. Their bodies can't repair normal wear. It's a devastating condition. Inflammation is not the villain. Chronic runaway inflammation that never resolves. That's the problem. Targeted acute inflammation in response to injury, that's exactly what you want. This has real implications for how you treat injuries. The science on icing has been quietly shifting. Many exercise physiologists now suggest that applying ice to an acute injury may blunt inflammation at precisely the moment when you want inflammation most. The cooling numbs the area and temporarily relieves discomfort, but it can also slow the clearance of cellular debris and restrict the fluid dynamics that move immune cells in and out of the injury site. When the tissues rewarm, there's also a well-documented rebound effect in neural activity. Neurons that were cooled come back more active, not less, which in the context of pain processing means the signals can actually intensify. Heat, on the other hand, has been shown to improve tissue viscosity, enhance perfusion, and help move fluid through the injury site more efficiently, all of which supports faster healing. This runs opposite to what most of us were taught growing up. Ice it. Take ibuprofen. Stay off it. The ibuprofen piece is worth flagging too. NSAIDs reduce inflammation, which means in the acute phase of an injury, they may be trading short-term pain relief for a slightly slower biological repair process. That's a trade-off worth knowing about. So what does an evidence-based injury recovery protocol actually look like? Based on the current research and conversations happening at the intersection of neuroscience and sports medicine, a few things stand out clearly. Sleep is non-negotiable. 8 hours immobile minimum. The glymphatic system, essentially the brain's overnight debris clearance network, is most active during slow-wave sleep, and it plays a significant role not just in brain injury recovery, but in overall tissue repair. Sleeping on your side, or with feet slightly elevated, has been shown to improve the rate of glymphatic clearance by optimizing the fluid dynamics that allow that system to function. Light movement, a 10-minute walk at bare minimum, also matters, even with injuries that limit mobility. Movement acts as a mild natural painkiller by generating sensory input that competes with pain signals in the nervous system. It also keeps circulation flowing through the injury area, which is exactly what you want. Zone 2. Cardiovascular exercise. That easy, conversational pace activity, like a relaxed walk, a light bike ride, easy swimming, done for 30 to 45 minutes 3 times a week, has also been shown to enhance glymphatic clearance and support brain health, independent of injury. Research into traumatic brain injury recovery points consistently to this type of low-intensity movement as one of the most beneficial interventions for clearing the cellular debris that accumulates after concussion. The key word is low intensity. We're not talking high-performance training here. We're talking a pace where you could comfortably hold a conversation. That specific zone, consistently applied, appears to do more for long-term brain health than almost anything else available. Now, for the part that I find most profound about all of this. Your perception of pain can be actively modulated through your mental state, and not in a vague, positive thinking kind of way, in a neurochemical, circuit-level, measurable way. Stanford pain researcher Sean Mackey ran a study where people were exposed to controlled heat pain while looking at images of people they were romantically in love with. Their pain thresholds increased measurably, they could tolerate more, and rated the pain as less intense. The effect was especially pronounced in people in the early, intensely infatuated stage of a relationship, the kind where you can't stop thinking about someone. That mental state appears to drive dopamine release, and dopamine has a direct inhibitory effect on pain pathways. It also activates the vagal system, which shifts the body toward a calmer physiological state, which itself lowers pain sensitivity. This is also why adrenaline is such a powerful short-term painkiller. Norepinephrine and epinephrine, when released, bind to receptors that actively suppress the transmission of pain signals. It's a hardwired biological mechanism, not toughness or distraction. Acupuncture research from Harvard Medical School has been illuminating the specific neural circuits behind all of this. The work shows that stimulating different areas of the body with different intensities can either increase or decrease inflammation and pain through specific, identifiable pathways. Mild stimulation of the limbs activates the vagal system, which reduces inflammation and calms the nervous system. Intense stimulation of the abdominal area can do the opposite, activating pathways that ramp up the inflammatory response under most circumstances. This means acupuncture is neither universally beneficial nor universally problematic. The effect depends entirely on where, how intensely, and with what goal. The right kind of stimulation, correctly applied, engages real, documented biological pathways. That's not mysticism, that's anatomy. Chronic pain specifically affects roughly 30% of adults worldwide according to recent global estimates, and what makes it so difficult to treat is that it represents neuroplasticity working in the wrong direction. The brain's pain circuits have been recruited, amplified, and entrenched through repetition. The same mechanism that allows you to learn a skill or consolidate a memory can lock in a pain pattern. Research published in 2024 found that in chronic pain, regions like the prefrontal cortex, insula, and anterior cingulate cortex undergo measurable structural changes, gray matter shifts, altered connectivity. This is not psychological weakness. It is a real, physical reorganization of the brain, and recent clinical trials using a method called pain reprocessing therapy, which essentially teaches people to reinterpret their pain signals as non-threatening, showed that 66% of participants with long-term chronic pain became pain-free after 4 weeks and remained so a year later. The brain rewired itself because it was given new, repeated information to work with. That result stops me in my tracks every time I revisit it. 66%. After years, sometimes decades, of persistent pain, through a mind-based intervention that worked at the level of neural circuitry. That is the power of top-down modulation. That is what becomes available when you understand how this system actually works. Here's what I want you to take from all of this. Pain is real. Injury is real. The biology is real. But your brain is not a passive victim of these signals. It is the author of the experience. And authors can revise. The tools are real. Move the injured side gently. Restrict the healthy side strategically. Embrace the acute inflammatory response. Use heat rather than cold. Sleep on your side. Walk daily. Do your Zone 2 cardio 3 times a week. And understand that the mental component, your focus, your emotional state, your perception of threat, is as physiologically meaningful as anything else in the equation. Growth is not accidental, it's intentional. If you're ready to build a better version of yourself, welcome. Stay tuned.